Here today with David Lund. He's a hospitality financial leadership pioneer. He's held positions at a number of hotels, and he's written a book called The Prosperous Hotelier. This is an amazing book, provides a great overview of all sorts of aspects of a hotel, from the measure of drinks in the restaurant to the big picture of how the hotel is performing, not just for itself, but in relationship to other hotels in the area. And the big focus is on the numbers. Can you tell me just a little bit about your own background in the hotel industry and how you managed to get kind of this bird's eye view of operations?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small coastal town in Atlantic Canada, and we had a summer resort. And I literally grew up in the shadow of the hotel. And one thing led to another, and I ended up going to hotel school there in the same town in the community college. And I started working at the hotel and ended up working for the same brand for over 30 years. And started out in operations like everybody does, basically in rooms or food and beverage. Did both. And about 10 years into my career, we had a bit of a soft spot in the economy, and the hotel was actually doing layoffs. And they offered me a job in accounting or, a pink slip. So a friend of mine who I had a lot of respect for, he was a bit older than I was, and he said, that's a great opportunity. You should really go work in accounting. And I thought he was crazy, but I listened to him, and I spent the next 20 some years honing my craft on the financial side of the hotel. And I really felt like I learned a lot. And it's sort of the missing piece in a lot of people's career, understanding the numbers. And I kind of fell into it. I'm not really an accountant. I don't have a CGA or a CPA or any of those things. I did take some additional courses after hotel school, but I'm your typical hotel accountant, controller. But I am familiar with the operation, which I think gives me a unique perspective into what the people in the operations are going through. They're very busy with the guests and the colleagues, and taking time to learn the numbers is not always something that they choose to do or can do easily. So I think this book really kind of is going to help in that regard a lot.
So can you say a little bit about why you feel like it's important for everybody to at least have a basic sense of the numbers, and maybe mixed in with that, what does that mean to have a basic sense of the numbers?
Yeah, well, hospitality is the kind of industry where a lot of people come for a summer and they end up spending a lifetime because they like it and it likes them. But they quite quickly, after a few short years, find themselves not just serving the guests and serving the cocktails and the meals and checking people in and checking people out. They're in positions of responsibility. And all of a sudden, things change. People now give them responsibilities around their budgets and departmental forecasts and making their numbers. And for a lot of them, they're kind of lost because they've never really had any formal training with the numbers. And in our industry, it's not something that we readily do, train people around the numbers. We train people on service, we train people on leadership and engagement, but we don't train them on the numbers. And I recognize that after I put together my first workshop a number of years ago, that nobody does this, and it's something that was missing. And it was really a light bulb moment for me that someone needs to change this inside of our industry, because for a leader, it's the ticket to the executive office, to more prosperity in their own career. They have to know their numbers. If they don't know their numbers, they're not going to get that job as a director of ops or department head, maybe even, or especially a general manager. You've got to know your numbers, because that's what the owner wants to talk about. The owner doesn't want to talk about the guests or the colleagues. The owner wants to talk about the money.
What's the sort of threshold where somebody says, okay, this isn't so terrifying, these numbers, these are like, what does it take to get them to a sort of basic understanding?
Yeah, it takes a few lessons, basically. It's kind of like playing golf. You go out and play golf, first couple of holes, you're like, what's going on? How do I swing this club?
Mhm.
And probably by the time you're done the first game, you're so, you know, exasperated, and and peed off at yourself because you hit so many balls in the woods and you sliced up so many fairways. But if you come back, every week after 5 or 6 weeks, you're going to learn a lot about how to swing a golf club, and you'll get to the point where you can get around the course and know kind of what you're doing, and then you got to really perfect your craft. So again, if you get out there every week, and I liken that in the hotel world to every month in the hotel, the window opens and closes on the finances. We get a chance to start over again. So if you're responsible for your numbers and you're working your forecast every month and you're reviewing your results and you're correcting the mistakes you've made and altering course, those lessons are really going to help you figure out what's going on with your numbers. And as I can attest, it's really not that difficult. But you do need a guide. You do need something or someone to show you the way. You're never going to figure it out by yourself.
So, given everything that you've just said, who is the ideal audience for the book?
Well, the book really has two audiences. One clearly is the operational leader that wants to get better with their numbers and have a, a language around what's happening with the P&L and the business so that they can talk intelligently to the owners and to other managers and people from corporate office. And the second audience is really the financial people that want to get better with leading around the numbers. Because as a financial leader, your day job is to balance the books, obviously, but really the most pleasurable part of the job for most people is being that sought after financial leader that people want to follow. And by having a better understanding of the leadership techniques around the numbers and how getting the operational people involved really helps solve your biggest problem with the numbers, which is the communication around the numbers and getting people to be on top of their labor and their expenses so that we can get better results in the hotel. As that financial leader, leading your people is the other audience that the book is really designed for. A lot of the feedback that I got collecting the endorsements before we published really touched on that. This is like a Bible. This is something I'm going to keep around because there's stuff in here that even I didn't know that I'm going to be referencing and talking about with my teams. And there's things in there that I knew, but I didn't look at them that way. So it's a book that's got a lot of depth in it. It covers a wide variety of different ideas and topics. So I think there's lots there to have. I think there's lots there that a lot of people at various different levels of experience are really going to find useful. Everyone from the beginner to the really seasoned manager, so that people can come in at almost any entry point and find the book useful and not have to. You don't have to be a department manager. You don't have to have had 5 or 10 years of experience in the hotel to understand what I'm talking about.
So, one of the things that I like about the book is the coaching quality of it. It's sort of upbeat and but thoughtful in terms of the importance of bringing everybody in.
Yeah. Well, if you're anyone who aspires to a leadership position, if you are a waiter or front desk, we all have to start somewheres. And it's almost like people have a light shining on them. The the people who are destined for upward mobility, for management. Those are the people that would really benefit from reading the book now and getting their financial mojo going, because at the end of the day, they're going to find themselves one day before too long in a position where they have to deal with their numbers. And if you wait till that day to introduce yourself to some of the concepts, um, why not do it now? It'll be a little bit too late then for you to get the maximum benefit from it, because with the numbers, what you want to be able to do with them, again, using the golf analogy, is practice. Practice makes perfect. So having as many chances to get involved in things that lend themselves to discussions around the numbers and being involved in exercises around the numbers, budgets, forecasts, schedules, ordering supplies, all those things bode well for anyone who wants to increase their financial leadership knowledge.
Yeah. I can say, even from the perspective of a completely non-hotel financial person like myself, it's interesting to see the interplay of all the numbers, to see how something as small as the measure of the drink in the bar is reflected in the numbers as you project forward into budgets and things like that.
Yeah, everything in the hotel is connected. And hotels are not a terribly complicated business, but it's complex. There's a lot of different things going on at the same time, many, many things. And to be able to wrap your head around the financial aspects of that and what is working and what could be improved and how could it be improved, that's the magic. That's the secret sauce.
You talk about the three pillars of hospitality.
Yeah, so everybody knows what the first two pillars are. One is look after your guests, right? We're in the guest service business. And the second pillar is look after your staff, look after your colleagues. You're there to serve them, you're there to help them grow and develop. But the third pillar, which is the one that gets overlooked a lot or doesn't get the attention that the other two, is the numbers. And we could translate that and say the owner or the P&L, whatever it is. But what we want to be able to do inside of our careers is treat those three pillars equally, so that we put some additional effort into learning the numbers and getting comfortable with the numbers. Because as a hotel person, I'm probably already good with my guests, and I'm probably already really good with my staff. It's the numbers piece that is missing, and that is the missing element that's really going to help propel my career and increase my own personal prosperity.
And that is presumably the missing piece, because it seems so complicated, and yet it's the one thing that you can probably begin to get a handle on through this book.
Yeah. And, it does seem daunting. And I can remember the time when I was on the other side of the bridge. I thought it was complicated. Um, but really, it isn't that complicated. There are a lot of perhaps different things you need to know, but at the end of the day, it's not really difficult. These are not difficult concepts. They're just concepts you need to be introduced to. Apply an example that you're familiar with, and you go, okay, well, that's what that means. I understand that. And then one by one, you build those tools in your box, and before you know it, you've got a good, solid basis from which to work from. And that's really the key: is just take it one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. And how do you master your numbers in the hotel world? Well, one step at a time.
Can you share some of the topics that the book covers?
Yeah, so it's kind of broken down into two main things. One, it would be the mechanics. How do we do all the numbers? What do the different statements mean? How to read an income statement? How to read a balance sheet? How to calculate things like food costs? How to calculate things like RevPAR index? What does all that stuff mean? How does it relate to running the hotel? But then the other part of the book, which is equally as important, is the leadership aspects. How do I lead my team around the numbers? Because as we move up through the organization and we get more responsibility, we have more responsibility around the numbers, which means that now I have not only numbers to work with, but I have people that have their own numbers that I need to manage. They report to me, and I need to lead them. So leading people around the numbers is challenging, in that numbers have a lot of power in our society, and it's very easy to push the wrong way, and people get nervous or afraid, or they don't want anything to do with the numbers because they think they're going to blow up in their face. So we want to make sure that we have the right leadership skills around the numbers, so that people want to follow us, people want to do their forecasts. And the way we do that really is by showing them what's in it for them. Because, I may be talking to you, and you're a new manager in the front office, and you need to start putting together the forecast, and you may not have any idea how to do that. What I want to be able to instill in you is that this is good for your career, because if you can do your forecasts and talk intelligently about your payroll and expenses, that means you're ready for another promotion. That means you're upwardly mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And once people see the connection between getting good with their numbers, getting comfortable with their numbers, and upward mobility, they like it because that's responsibility, that's recognition, that's all of us have a need to make a difference in this world. It's a natural, innate part of our being. And if you can show people that they make a difference and that their numbers make a difference, they're away to the races.
What do you expect? Somebody works their way through this book, they'll come out with a basic understanding of the numbers or a general sense of concepts that will serve them.
Yeah, I would say three things. One is a basic understanding of the numbers, some enthusiasm around the numbers. And the third thing, which is the most important, is some confidence. Hey,
Yeah.
I could do this. I mean, I remember what David talked about here and there, and kind of get it. Maybe I need to practice it a few times. Maybe I need to do it myself in a real live situation, but it didn't sound that complicated. And that's exactly what it is just getting out there and practicing it and having the confidence, having a little bit of instruction, and having some enthusiasm for it.
One of the things that sort of up levels the book is that it's got some lovely illustrations in it by David Michael Moore, but it's also full of QR codes that you can scan to go to videos and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit about what people will find when they scan those QR codes in the book?
Yeah, so the QR codes are there to reinforce the lessons from the chapter. So you've just read a chapter and you're going, okay, I think I understand what he means. And then you click on the video. The video is probably no more than 90 seconds, maybe even be 60 seconds, and it's really going to help you go, oh yeah, I got it. and if there's something that's missing, it'll help fill in the missing pieces from the chapter. So I think it's a great way to learn because I don't know. I know other people have this experience, but I can be reading and be daydreaming at the same time. And I finish a chapter and go, okay, what did I just read? I don't know whether I got it all or whatever, but if I click on the QR code, it reinforced what I just learned. So it's another way of, once for information and twice for transformation, we say in the coaching world.
Yeah, that's great. It brings you to sort of links up to your site too, where you have blogs and other sources of information that really can round out your knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Takes people to my YouTube page. And also, don't forget to go to my website because there's over 300 weeks of blogs that people can watch as well as those videos.
So I'm going to just read the different sections of the book, the different section titles, just to give people a sense of what's in it. And then if you feel like commenting on that or on each individual, please feel free. But so there's a section on financial leadership, business principles and financial statements, managing payroll and expenses, cost of goods and food and beverage controls, hotel business strategy and financial analysis, and effective leadership with the numbers. So what was your thinking? Obviously, there's a method to the madness there. What was your thinking around the structure?
Yeah, so the 6 sections sort of really mirror what I would take somebody through in my 3-month one-on-one program. So the first section on financial leadership, what is it? And most people naturally think it's accounting, but really it isn't. It's business thinking. It's um, it's realizing that if I want to be a leader and grow my career, I need to know my numbers. And it's not accounting. We have people in the accounting department to do the journal entries, to do month end. We don't want you to do the accounting. We just want you to understand what you're dealing with on your end. Then the second part is about financial statements, like what are the basic financial statements, how to read them, how they're linked together. Um, and the third section is on managing payroll expenses. As well, as a manager, that's the number one thing you need to be able to do and be comfortable with. And again, it's not accounting, it's about understanding staff guides and productivity measurements and EFTEs and expense checkbooks and zero-based expenses. And then the section on cost of goods and food and beverage controls is a basic overview of the elements that at play in a food and beverage operation. And it's food and beverage, I could write 10 books on. It's very complex, and I'm not even a food and beverage, I'm not a foodie by any means, but there's a lot of stuff going on there, but I touch on that. And then I touch on actual business strategies. How do we measure things inside of our industry that really help the manager, the leader, understand how one hotel relates to another and how we can talk about our competitive nature of our business and how our hotel fits into that. Then the final section is on leadership, leading people around the numbers, because eventually you're going to get into a position where you are in a much greater role of responsibility, and you will have people to lead around the numbers, and that's really that's call it the upper echelons of financial leadership, but that's really where you're going to put everything else you've learned together so that you can be a really effective leader in your hotel with your guests, with your colleagues, and with the other managers around the numbers. So that's a basic overview of the 6 sections of the book.
You have a chapter on not just on COVID, but on disruptions in the industry.
Yeah, well, in my career, I've been through probably a half a dozen major disruptions that affect the hotel, and all of a sudden we're facing headwinds, not as many customers, rates take a dip. Obviously, COVID was by far the biggest one, but it taught us all some really important lessons. But I think the number one thing that it taught us is the lesson that we should have probably not dropped the ball on, and that is not looking after our colleagues and leaders. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, because of the suddenness of the pandemic and the immediate shutdown of everything, a lot of people were furloughed, a lot of people were laid off, a lot of people were let go. And that has really hurt our industry because a lot of those people left and they're not coming back. And the reason why they left is because we let them go, but also because we didn't have a plan. In our business, we always say our most important asset is our people. Well, we dropped the ball during COVID, quite frankly, because we didn't look after our number one asset. And if we were really, true to our word, we would have said, hey, let's take a deep breath here. It doesn't look great right now, but what can we do? And we all know that the government came along and at least in most places in North America with some wonderful programs that were designed to make employers and employees whole. But for a lot of hotels, they'd already said goodbye to most of their staff or their leaders. So let's never do that again. That's the lesson from COVID. We need to build the trust that we had back and then some, so that people want to put in those long hours and those weekends and those holidays when we're busiest at the hotel to serve our clients, because they know we have their backs. And a direct translation for that in financial leadership and with the Prosperous Hotelier is that investing in your employees and training them and teaching them about the numbers, that's gold. Because when someone sees that you've got an interest, that they have an interest in you, and that they're investing in you, that's a game changer for people in their careers and their loyalty to you as an employer or a brand or an owner. And that's what we have to build. And that's an investment that will pay off over time. And we can't be so short-sighted next time.
It makes you think that sort of being agile, being able to adapt quickly to the changes that occur. The more people who have financial knowledge, the more people who are aware, at least on a basic level, of the inner workings of a hotel, the more quickly you can do a reset.
The more people that are plugged into the financial process, the forecast, the budgets, their departmental expenses and payroll, and know what's going on, the more agile the hotel is going to be. If all the decisions are made at the top, and if all of the changes in direction and changes in spend are dictated from the top, that's not very efficient. We want all the different department managers and leaders to have a stake and have a piece of what's going on, so that if we have an indication that the forecast next month is going to be softer than we thought it was going to be in the budget, that they know what to do, that they know how to manage the flow through, so that we can come out of that month and be in much better shape financially than we would have been if nobody was really managing the process and we were waiting for the boss to tell us what to do.
You do one-on-one coaching, or do you do sort of you visit hotels? Tell me a little bit about the business.
Yeah, so two predominant parts of my business are, one is my one-on-one mentoring program. I do a 3-month program with people where we meet every week for an hour on Zoom, and I have some lesson plans I take them through, and I customize that as well based on their experience. If they're a rooms person or a food and beverage person, or just depending on where their strengths are. And then the second thing I do is I do team workshops. So I'll go to a hotel, or I can do them online as well. Some people choose that option. It's a bit more efficient. And I take them through largely the same style of material, but the delivery is much different because, it's a workshop format rather than a one-on-one relationship. And one-on-one relationship is really you and me working on your knowledge, and you get to ask all your questions, and it really becomes a part of our time together, focused on your development. Whereas the team workshop is more focused on the team and the team's efforts and their collective understanding and confidence around the numbers so that they can move forward together.
And so the book is a combination of that kind of work as well as your, what, 40 years experience in the industry?
You're really dating me there, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really kind of comes down to the same concepts, presented differently. In the book, they're presented in a chapter format. In my one-on-one work, it's me talking to you about what it means, and in the workshops, it's us going through examples and getting up in the front of the room and telling our peers what this means to me and how I relate to that. And um, but it's all stuff that comes back to the same thing. It's all about improving our prosperity. And the Prosperous Hotelier is really at the core of what my work is all about on one-on-ones and team workshops, is finding the way to get the individual or the team to be more prosperous. Use this book to help improve your confidence and your enthusiasm around the numbers. If you can do that, it's really going to help you with your prosperity in your hotel career, and it's going to be a lot more fun. The numbers are actually really fun, and I know that a lot of people are probably chuckling, going, "What's this guy talking about?" He's he's really talking about a dentist appointment here. It's not fun, the numbers, but the numbers, if we approach them the right way, really are the fun part of hospitality, because once we understand them, we can dance with them. We can really get them to um, work with us so that we can get our ideas across easier, so we can get the kind of things we want going inside of our hotel, so that we can get the owner to pay for certain things that they otherwise wouldn't have paid for because they don't understand the need and the return and our desire to improve the overall profitability of the hotel. And by being able to speak that language, that's how I can do those things.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks very much for talking with me.
You're welcome, Chris. Thanks for the interview. It was great, as always, talking to you. And the very fact that we're not talking about chapter 34 anymore just warms my heart.
Been great working with you.
Yeah, you as well.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much. Take care.